Welcome to one of the oldest and most influential arrondissements of Paris, the 6th.
The 6th has quintessential left bank energy. It's intellectual, sophisticated, romantic, and a little smug, it must be said. It's definitely worth a stop on any trip to Paris.
Real Parisians love to argue about whether or not it's become too touristy, but for the most part, they secretly love it.
Join us as we take you on a tour of this iconic and historic neighborhood, le 6e arrondissement.
The history of what's now the 6th arrondissement of Paris began back in the Middle Ages, when Paris was smaller, rougher, and more dangerous.
These days, the 6th arrondissement looks like a polished postcard, but back in the day, this was the scruffy edge of town. In the 6th century, monks built an abbey here, and that abbey is today the Église de Saint-Germain. It's still standing, and it has a fascinating history.
To find out more, we're off to meet tour guide Richard Smith.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, nice to meet you both.
So tell us more about Saint-Germain-des-Prés.
Yeah, of course. Well, firstly, Saint-Germain-des-Prés, it means Saint-Germain in the fields, I suppose, and that gives you a bit of a clue as to where it was positioned in Paris when it was built. It was outside of the city walls, and that's because this is the oldest church in Paris. So although we're pretty central in Paris now, this is from the 6th century AD, but there are so many layers to this place. I mean, the door beside me, that's 17th century. Some of the tower is 19th century. Some of the nave is 11th century. And at the back, they have these Gothic flying buttresses from the 12th century. Back in the French Revolutionary period, for instance, there was an abbey prison attached to this place as well. In the 19th century, they redecorated it to look like its original Gothic 12th, 13th century self. So it's really one not to miss, I'd say.
So Saint-Germain-des-Prés isn't the only famous church in the 6th. Another one that some of our viewers might be familiar with is Saint-Sulpice. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, that's right, Genie. You've only got to look at the names of the metro stations in this area. Saint-Germain-des-Prés, Saint-Sulpice, Saint-Placide, Notre-Dame-des-Champs. They're all names of churches in this arrondissement. Saint-Sulpice architecturally is very different to Saint-Germain-des-Prés here. It's from the 17th and 18th century. Lots of your viewers might know it because of the Da Vinci Code, history, non-history that takes place there. But also during the French Revolution, that was another one of these churches that was no longer a church and made into a temple for the supreme being, in fact.
So Richard, fast forward a few centuries and the neighborhood became the epicenter of artistic rebellion, drawing a lot of writers and publishers, including a lot of Anglophone writers. Can you tell us a little bit about who came here?
Yeah, so between the two world wars, so the 1920s, 1930s, Paris really was a hub for Anglophone, English-speaking writers. And so probably most famously, I would say that Ernest Hemingway came here. But then you also had people like F. Scott Fitzgerald, you had George Orwell, and also James Joyce. His most famous book, Ulysses, was actually published on the street just down there. Shakespeare and Company's original site was just down this street here, the Rue de l'Odéon. So nowadays it's right by Notre Dame, but in the 1920s it was an American woman, Sylvia Beach, who set the bookshop up. She almost acted as like a surrogate mother for lots of these like young male single writers too.
Why were so many American writers drawn to Paris, and in particular the 6th?
Well, we can definitely talk about like the romance of Paris. I mean, what exists now, it certainly existed then. A bit more prosaically, I think financially, Paris was attractive for Americans in those days. So the exchange rate between the French franc and the US dollar had got much better for Americans after the First World War, when France had been kind of financially ruined, I suppose. But then also societally, I would say that like viewpoints were much more liberal here. So for instance, we talk about prohibition in the United States in the 1920s. Well, you only have to read Hemingway's memoir to know that there was no prohibition in Paris in the 1920s. But also things like same-sex relationships, race and ethnicity, they were much more open here in Paris.
And French intellectuals certainly chose the 6th arrondissement as their headquarters, and you're going to take us to one of their most beloved spots.
That's right, Les Deux Magots. So let's go.
Let's go. Who used to hang out here?
Well, I suppose you could say intellectuals, and what that means in France in the early part and middle part of the 20th century are your writers, our old friend Hemingway from before, Picasso was a regular here, and then slightly later on, French philosophers, people like Albert Camus, you have Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir.
The de Magot was kind of an existential philosopher's paradise, right? Is it true that a lot of them were really poor and so they came here to debate because they couldn't afford heating?
Well, yeah, that keyword existentialism for these guys like Sartre and de Beauvoir. I mean, I think you could expand it out more than just the philosophers. I think most people in Paris, they like to come and hang out in cafes because their square meterage of their apartment's pretty small, and I think that's the case for all Parisians, let alone just the existentialists.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for taking us around on this tour of the Sixth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. So these days, the de Magot is kind of a postcard-perfect tourist destination, but back in the day, it was smoky and boisterous and full of debates between intellectuals. But what is an intellectual? One of the most characteristic inventions of modern French culture is the intellectual.
C'est une bataille philosophique, c'est une bataille sociale.
Je crois qu'un intellectuel, c'est un écrivain ou un artiste qui interrompt régulièrement ou périodiquement son travail d'écrivain, le face-à-face avec son œuvre, pour intervenir dans la cité et pour s'engager.
Over the years, France has produced a wide array of world-leading thinkers, front and center in the advancement of dazzling theories about knowledge, liberty, justice, the human condition, and of course, the meaning of life. Some French intellectuals have almost sacred status, like Enlightenment philosophers Voltaire and Rousseau, or authors Victor Hugo and Émile Zola. France's feverish theoretical activity came to a head in the decades after World War II. The ultimate symbol of left-bank intellectualism was the power duo, composed of the existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre and the feminist philosopher Simone de Beauvoir. If the figure of the intellectual has arguably disappeared from the public debate today, the French continue to value sharpness of mind and heated debates. The study of philosophy has been mandatory in French high schools since the 1800s, a tradition inherited from the philosophers of the Enlightenment.
Je trouve que ça aide beaucoup à mûrir à notre âge et que ça sert beaucoup pour les années à venir.
Est-ce que ça te donne envie de faire de la philosophie?
Oui. Oui.
C'est assez abstrait en fait.
If French philosopher René Descartes famously said, "I think, therefore I am," "we think, therefore we are" could be said of the French.
The de Magot and the Café de Flore may be emblematic of Paris cafe culture today, but in a way they owe it all to where we are right now, Le Procope.
Le Procope is widely considered the oldest cafe in Paris. It was founded in 1686.
That's 360 years ago. Back then, cafes weren't even a thing. People mostly drank wine, beer, maybe a little chocolate if they were feeling fancy.
Coffee was still exotic. It was a recent import from the New World. So Le Procope brought coffee in and changed the way people gathered. And when they started gathering, they started thinking and debating about radical ideas about liberty and equality.
The Procope became a hotbed for Enlightenment philosophers and intellectuals. Voltaire practically lived here, supposedly drinking dozens of coffees every day. And Diderot edited his famous Encyclopédie, the encyclopedia, just nearby.
And apparently a certain Benjamin Franklin was a regular here when he needed French help for a certain rebellion across the Atlantic.
During the French Revolution, Robespierre, Danton, and Marat were all regulars, sketching out the future of France. And legend has it the iconic red Phrygian cap, the symbol of liberty, was worn here for the very first time.
And all this plays really well into the 6th arrondissement's reputation of being a hotspot for revolutionary action over the years. Don't let the modern-day glamour of the 6th arrondissement fool you. These streets have seen more than their fair share of bloody barricades and radical manifestos. During the French Revolution of 1789, the 6th was the epicenter of revolutionary fervor and plotting. the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen was printed in the neighborhood. Upset that half of the population was left out, Olympe de Gouges, a revolutionary heroine who lived in the 6th, wrote the Declaration of the Rights of Women and of the Female Citizen. Revolutionary flare-ups continued for most of the 19th century. 1830, 1848, the Paris Commune of 1871. If there was a king to be toppled or a barricade to be built, the 6th was where you'd find the action. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the 6th once again became the front line of a different kind of revolution. In May 1968, student protesters threw cobblestones and clashed with riot police. The movement exploded into a nationwide general strike that nearly toppled the government. Throughout the ages, a regular flashpoint was the Théâtre de l'Odéon. In the wake of the Revolution of 1789, it became the Theater for the People. And during May 68, students and workers occupied it, renaming it the Permanent Assembly, holding debates about the birth of a new society and claiming power to imagination. That spirit has never quite left, as the Odéon remains the go-to site for cultural protests. The 6th arrondissement is a masterclass in the more things change, the more they stay the same.
And if all the hustle and bustle of the 6th is getting too much for you, you can always relax in the elegant Luxembourg gardens.
Queen Mary de Medici commissioned these gardens, and they really are symmetry at its finest.
Chess players, joggers, elegant grandparents all coexist alongside a lot of kids pushing toy sailboats.
The gardens really are the lungs of the left bank, so pull up a green chair, sit back, relax, and partake in some spectacular people watching.
An added bonus, this is where you'll find the French Senate, democratic and chic.
Well, that wraps it up for this tour of the 6th arrondissement. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon for another stop in one of Paris's iconic neighborhoods.